One of the things that can make many players feel overwhelmed when first playing D&D is the character sheet. The character sheet has multiple sections containing information that is relevant to a character's race, class, background, equipment, or other features. And before playing the game, you need to be able to navigate the sheet proficiently. So let's get comfortable with it. My name is Ian and welcome to D&D Cram School, a show here on Incendium D&D where we break down the rules so that you'll know everything you need to know in order to play 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Today we're going to be exploring those different components of the character sheet so that you will be able to confidently write down the correct information in the correct location. So let's start at the top. Here we have your character's class, level, race, and background, as well as experience points. Alignment, as seen here, is a general descriptor for a character's individual morality and behavior. It can be a useful tool when learning how to roleplay your character better, but mechanically speaking, it is virtually inconsequential in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Similarly, we have a character's personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws, which can be really useful in guiding roleplay at the table, but virtually have no impact on gameplay at all. You'll likely never have to use what you write down here in the mechanics of the game. However, these ideals, bonds, flaws, and traits may change over time depending on how your character's narrative arc is fulfilled. Oh, and before we move on, we have experience points. However, most DMs that I've met tend to use the milestone leveling as opposed to the experience points leveling, just because it tends to be a little bit crunchier. So, comment down below if you or someone you play with uses experience points still. I'd be eager to hear the argument behind why. Now, over here on the left, you find ability scores. These are your character's 6 main statistics, and they will form the basis of the modifiers that you'll be adding to any of your die rolls later on during the game. We'll be talking about how to generate and allocate these later on in future videos. This moves us up to inspiration, one of the DM's greatest tools for rewarding character roleplay. You can use inspiration to gain advantage on an attack, ability check, or saving throw during the game. The only thing you can't use inspiration on is the damage that you deal. However, kind of like binary code, you can only have one of these at a time, a 0 or a 1. You have it or you don't. And unless your DM says otherwise, you can leave this space blank for most of the game. Next down the list is your proficiency bonus. This is an extra bonus that you'll be adding to rolls that you're proficient in, such as attack rolls, ability checks, or certain saving throws. This bonus is also determined by your character's level and will level up with you. You'll notice in the 2 columns below, saving throws and skills, that there are bubbles next to each word. Throughout creating your character, the relevant information may mention that you are going to fill in one of these bubbles or another to represent that you're adding your proficiency bonus to it. So when you run into this, just fill in the bubble to remind yourself of the math that you're going to be doing later at the end of character creation. And in the box below this, we can note our other proficiencies, such as languages, tools, weapons, armor, or even vehicles. Now, you might notice that in between these 2 sections, we have another spot that can be filled in called passive wisdom perception. This is the number that another creature has to meet or beat in order to successfully sneak by your character unnoticed. And once we determine our abilities and proficiencies, this number will be 10 plus the relevant perception modifier. Moving on to the middle column, this has all the information that we'll be needing if we ever get into combat. Armor class is the number that an attacker needs to meet or beat in order to successfully hit your character. As its name implies, it is usually calculated based on the choice of armor that you use for your character. However, there are other factors that can play into it, such as your dexterity bonus. Initiative is the number that we add to the roll at the beginning of combat to determine what the turn order is for each character or creature on the field. Usually this is just your dexterity modifier. However, there are some special features or magic items that may give this a little boost. Speed is your character's movement and is primarily dictated by your race. However, this can also be influenced by a character's class. If your table is playing on a grid, each space is usually representing about 5 feet of movement. If you divide your speed by 5, you'll get the number of squares that you can move during a given round of combat. Moving down, we come to hit points. This is the amount of damage that your character can take without becoming incapacitated. Hit points are calculated based on your choice of class, as well as the Constitution modifier. And below this, you find an area for your temporary hit points. This isn't something you'll need to worry about during character creation, but when playing the game, there are spells or abilities that can give you temporary HP that act as kind of a buffer for your normal hit points. This allows you to take less damage than you might normally. Next over, we have hit dice. These are determined by your class and can be expended in order to heal your character during a short rest. You'll have a number of hit dice equal to your level, but the size of the hit dice, a d12 or a d10, is determined by your class level. And over here, we keep track of death saving throws, successes, and failures. If your character loses all their hit points, they are going to have to start making death saving throws to avoid dying. While there is no bonus to death saving throws, this section is used during gameplay and not really during character creation. Next up, we have some space to work out the damage bonuses and the attack bonuses for our common attacks and abilities. This is usually used to keep track of different kinds of weapons, but if you're playing a magic user, you might keep some of your basic spells here too. And this section below is where we'll be writing down our equipment, but we'll get into that later. Lastly, to the right, we have our racial traits and class features. This is where you're going to be writing down any of those special features that we mentioned in episode 1. These features will be character defining during gameplay and will solidify your role in the party. This section is really useful for writing down those different features and reminding us of the concrete options that we have to work with. So that's the basic 5th edition character sheet. I know it can be confusing right now, but with time and practice, making characters will feel like a breeze. For our next video, we'll be taking a deeper look into our character's race and all the different kinds of cultures that you might find at the table. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe for some more easy tips in starting your adventure. Have an awesome day. We'll catch you guys next time.